Hello, everyone. I'm Jason Perez,
And I'm Wesley Long.
and we're bringing you a fresh new take on disaster preparedness.
Welcome to Disaster Class.
All right, so this week we're going to have a part 2 of the episode with Wesley and Zack talking about their favorite gear. So enjoy.
But all right, so now I'm gonna get back into sort of like, do you have like an everyday carry? Like, do you have your EDC that you always keep on you? Yeah. All right. What's yours? Let's hear.
So I work in an office. I work for the local hospital.
Yeah.
I'm an emergency dispatcher there in the hospital. So it's not an extremely rugged environment. It's more of a, office type. So I just have my bag over my shoulder there. That's my messenger bag. So it carries my laptop, my personal stuff, but I'm going to have always in there my quick pack. I always carry a foldable knife. I carry an LED flashlight for myself. The little medication stuff that I always have, because that's also a key, right? Be thinking about
Right.
what medication you want to carry, especially if you're in a place where you're isolated and you can't get somewhere else. Just for me, it's just the normal stuff, ibuprofen.
Yeah.
Just always want to make sure I have that with me. Hand sanitizer, extra mask, CPR mask, things like that that I have, because I have a 3-mile commute. Right. So I'm at work in 5-10 minutes. I'm back home in 5-10 minutes. And then where I work happens to be a hospital.
Yeah. It's a pretty good
So-
place to be in a disaster.
Right. So again, though, it's all about personal assessment. If like this, the people we try to speak to the most to be thinking about these things are like your urban commuters, the person
Yeah.
that's 45 minutes, an hour from the city and they commute in, because that alone can create a world of issues, right? Either whether it's for unification back home with your family, but just getting to that place. If you're taking the train or taking public transportation, anything could happen. You could be at risk for anything there. If the city gets locked down for some reason, you might not be able to get out. So be thinking about those things for your everyday carry. Super important. You want to have some personal protective equipment. You might want to have some tools so you can get some things done. You may want to throw in there some emergency food supply.
Yeah.
A couple Cliff bars.
Yeah. Granola bars. I've got granola bars friggin' everywhere.
Right, just in case, right? Or if it's just like a long commute, you're stuck in traffic, and you don't want to, you don't want to get, hungry. So it's just, okay,
There's-
it's good. Yeah, there you go.
Granola bar.
Got to have something, right?
Yeah.
And have something that you enjoy, right? Something that's going to lighten the mood, right? Super important to really think about where you're going, how often you're going there, and really, I hate to put it this way, but what's the likelihood of you being separated from your loved ones
Yeah.
and being alone in a situation, right? If there's an active shooter in the city and the city is locked down and you can't go home for 5-6 hours, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
What do you have on you? If there's a gas release, I know some guys that really get into it. They've got not just N95s, but they've got respirators because they make them really portable now.
Yeah.
Those are options to think about depending on where you work and live, right? It's not like we want to be these zombie apocalypse preppers that are thinking about, but really think about it. It does take some time and there's value in doing that.
Yeah. This is a relatively rural area, and there's certainly some very rural. So like some of the stuff that, we have to think about is a little bit different than, like a commuter into the city. You're going to have some sort of support. One of the things that we have to think about is like, we have volunteer fire and EMS, as most of the country does. I think it's the last time I don't know, the statistic we used to throw around all the time is like 90% of fire and EMS agencies are volunteers, something crazy like that. But like you have to think about isolation as well. So like not only like, because there are parts, I live in a like somewhat suburban area. Like we're probably going to be okay. There's going to be services close by. Hospitals like just down the road. Police department, fire department, and ambulance are all pretty close by. But there's parts of the state where like one road gets taken out and that's it. There's no help coming. So you're either huffing it around or during Irene, Roxbury, Vermont was fully isolated. They had to fly in water and other stuff. So again, when you're commuting, like an everyday carry, I have the exact same stuff. I keep a multi-tool on me as well, just because I tend to tinker. I like to fix stuff and break things. So I keep that more just as a nerd than anything else. But and then a watch. I've got like if I know I'm going to be doing like rugged stuff, I've got my the classic G-Shock here.
yeah,
That's
G-Shock,
solar powered. It's going to last forever. It'll outlast me. But I have moved now because I do work typically in an office environment, and I don't typically have to get super dirty. I've gotten much more wired. So I have an Apple Watch now, which is a recent purchase. I got the new iPhone 14 and I got a brand new iPad. And all of this stuff actually has a huge amount of utility in an emergency compared to what it used to. For instance, the Apple products now are going to have the ability to ping satellites for SOS, which never used to be able to do. My watch can detect if something happens to me. So one thing that, if you're by yourself and you go down, in the past, it was unfortunately until somebody found you or the smell got bad enough and they eventually found you.
Bug people.
Yeah, exactly. You were kind of on your own. Now, my watch is going to detect me going down or see my heart rate do something crazy, and it's going to, yeah, and it's going to be like, yeah, something's going on here. I'm going to notify 911, which is awesome. Of course that requires batteries, so I have to buy additional batteries. But I can offset certain things. So I used to carry field operating guides around all the time. Because I was always told, like, don't rely on electronics. Like back in the day, like comms are out. Make sure you've got a radio and all your field operating guides. So I used to be a state watch officer, so I kept all this stuff in physical form. Now, I know somebody on the internet's going to tell me I'm an idiot for doing this, but I'm basically entirely digital at this point. There's so much redundancy built in a lot of our communications. For instance, Hurricane Ian, devastating storm. Most of the communication systems actually stayed up. Power stayed up in a lot of places fairly well. Florida did a lot of investment after, I think it was Irma, and hardened a lot of their power and communications infrastructure. I've got family in New Orleans. After New Orleans got absolutely, well, it wasn't New Orleans specifically. It was basically everywhere south of New Orleans, but New Orleans took a huge hit. Last year, I was able to talk to them throughout the entire storm. I was giving them updates, letting them know what was going on. They were chatting with me as trees were falling through their houses, and we were trying to make sure everyone was accounted for and stuff. Never really lost communication. So I'm still a radio guy. I do like having radios just because mostly it's a closed loop, right? Like you don't have to worry about somebody else having to come and fix it. But yeah, I carry a lot of electronics now. And I also made sure that all of my electronics each have their own cell. And I use FirstNet. So if you're an emergency responder or an emergency manager in the military, I highly, highly, highly recommend you look at FirstNet. A, because there's some great deals, but B, because in the event of an emergency, you have the ability to basically get on your own channel essentially, and have priority communications, which we all used to use the wireless priority service, which was the worst system on the face of the earth. Oh my God. You have to call in, punch a code in. It was awful. So yeah, electronics is a huge thing. I do carry around a book. I like Moleskine for notepads and stuff, just because they're like kind of nice and they're fancy. I've got this was a pandemic purchase here. It's my brass astronaut pen. So copper and brass are antibacterial, microbial. I can't remember what the term is, but it used to be hospitals and doctors' office had brass and copper everywhere. Mm-hmm. It was a pain because it patinas. You can sort of see this is dull a little bit. Yeah. I think it looks cool, but so they all moved to stainless steel because of how difficult it was to keep it looking nice. Because you'd have to polish it and do all this other stuff. But that's so that was like part of my panic. I was like, oh God, the pens have diseases on them. I have to get pens that can kill that. So
think if you're a fidgeter,
yeah,
it is a concern.
Yeah. Hands are gross. And, so this is a good way. And actually you can even almost see, how much that's unscrewed a little bit. It's kind of shiny there, but yeah, it's patinaed quite a bit and I use it quite a bit. But a good pen and paper still, it's hard to beat. I do usually carry at least a folded knife in addition to my multi-tool, just because I like having a knife to do all sorts of stuff. I also tend to break blades and dull them out because I'm like, oh, I need a flathead screwdriver and I don't have anything. I'm going to use my knife. Yep. Like you said, I usually have at least one flashlight. I know if I'm going somewhere and I'm going to be with other people and I know they're not going to bring flashlights, I'll usually do that. I was at an IEM conference a couple of years ago, and there was a glow stick guy, the military glow sticks, and he was actually packing up to leave. And I had stopped by before because at our my old job at the university, I bought a ton of glow sticks to put all over the place because I was like, no one checks batteries, so the flashlights and everything always died.
Right.
So I was like, I'm just gonna buy glow sticks for everyone. Those things have like a 15-year shelf life. This guy gave me so many glow sticks and all of these different types. So I got to try out all these things, and we took them for camping. We brought them. The kids messed around with them for Halloween. We had glow sticks. So I usually also keep glow sticks around the house too, just because snap lights is the same thing.
And you could go crazy and get some into infrared, but
oh yeah, I mean, in those lights,
we don't necessarily need that.
Yeah. So funny story. I knew someone who worked in some very secret squirrel stuff, and he showed up one day and he put this thing on my desk, and I was like, "What the heck is this?" And he goes, "It's an infrared beacon. If you snap a 9-volt battery to the bottom of it, it's now a marker." And I was like, "Oh, cool." And I snapped it, and I was like, I guess I can't see anything. And I was like, am I being targeted now? And he's like, well, not now, but that's what they were made for. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to go ahead and take that off.
Take that 9-volt battery out.
Yeah. So flashlights, I'm a huge fan of. Eye protection. I try to keep eye pro in my car. I have tons in my garage. I'm the dork for that. Respiratory stuff. Yeah. Especially if you're working in dirty environments, and disasters tend to be dirty. Gloves too. I keep a pair of mechanics wear gloves in everything. I've got them in bags, and they're cheap too. They're like $15. You can get a decent set of gloves, and I just wear them until they fall apart, and then I get a new pair. And they make slide on. They even make some insulated ones. So in my car, I've got a set, and then in the house, I've got a couple other sets, because people just don't think about that. In an emergency, that cut becomes an infection, and there's no medical, help or at least antibiotics. It would be pretty stupid to die because you cut your hand because you're too lazy to wear gloves, and you've only got limited medical supplies anyways, so don't waste them on stupid things. So pen. What else? Cash is I don't carry cash around ever though.
That's a funny one. We always talk about small bills cash because we have a class as well that we teach.
Yeah.
With Instinct Ready, it's a 3-hour basically emergency preparedness. We call it community emergency planning class that individuals get put through, where they learn how to do hazard identification, risk assessment, create an EAP, and we often talk about cash when we get towards the end of that. So small bills, I would say nothing larger than a 20 or a 10.
It's perfect. I'm not a baller, so.
So your money
10's on the high side, honestly.
It doesn't fold. That's
cool,
it's all good.
Yes, my money jiggles.
So, it's a concern because you don't want to have a large bill that needs to be broken because whatever item you were trying to purchase now might cost that much.
Yeah.
So.
Something somebody else brought up in the LinkedIn discussion that we had is sunscreen and bug spray. Yep. People always forget sunscreen and bug spray. I've been to several sort of like deployments or activations where we're outside and people are just getting absolutely torched. And so I also keep sun hats. Like I've my military uniform, I've got a sun hat for that. And then my USAR stuff, I have a sun hat for that. Just something big that can like shield your head. But at the end of the day, like sunscreen.
Sense, right. Just real quick again. That's what I like to do on our podcast. I'm like the everyday blue collar guy. When Jason's talking about all these EMs. Again, if you're being deployed or going to a place that has a lot of water, because with a water event, there will be lots of bugs.
Yeah.
It's just the way it works.
And that's why we're sponsored by Sawyer, which makes bug spray, permethrin. So ticks, that's another thing up here you have to think about is ticks. Ticks are gross and they carry diseases. So the other thing you can do is actually treat your stuff ahead of time. So my the pants and stuff that I wear outside for yard work or even like I think my USAR uniform, I did it too as well, it's permethrin, I believe, and it's potent. Don't spray it while you're wearing it, but you can put it all over your stuff, and that'll keep your stuff bug free for about 6 months, I believe, with regular washing. So that stuff is really handy. Sunglasses as well. It's one of those things you just don't think about, particularly in the winter. Snow blindness sucks. If you're outside, you're not just getting it from the sun, you're getting it from, that's why you wear goggles when you're skiing. Like, it helps keep stuff out of your eyes, but it's also to help, keep your eyes. I'm also wimpy eyes. I wear sunglasses all the time. And I work in a dark office. It looks very bright here. It's just because I have a good camera. I'm like a mole man and I just hide in my dark. Yeah, and then like we talked about the first aid kit, I keep around. I also like headphones. I listen to a lot of music, so I think in a disaster, I'm gonna want to zone out sometimes. So I always keep a nice set of Koss Porta Pros. They're old school, but they are probably the best headphones, and they fold up pretty nice and tight. Most people probably have like AirPods or something, but I still like the cord. I can't lose the cord; it's attached. If I have AirPods, those suckers are gone.
You have to have the adapters for it.
True. Yeah, you do. I just leave it on there.
3.5 millimeter
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, that's true. And if you're a real geek, you can get they do make nice, like here's actually one right here. It's a little DAC that you can plug into your phone or computer. So if you want really good audio. But yeah, so, I mean, honestly, we covered kind of everything. It was a little bit all over the place, but I just like gear. I like talking about gear, and how it's sort of evolved from like my early days as firefighter and EMS. I always just kind of carried like the bulky tool type stuff. Now that I don't have to crawl around in broken glass and people, I have moved more towards electronics. Oh, the other thing, and I wanted to highlight this because I think these are sweet. This is the Grid-It system, which I only have a couple things plugged in here because I don't usually keep it. Yeah, so having lots of stuff with you, like I've been told by other people, like you shouldn't bring that much stuff because a lot of times they think of like, well, you're just taking up space or it's added weight, which is certainly true. But with proper storage and cable management and all this other stuff, you can carry a lot of stuff in a relatively like small things. So for this, I've carried all sorts of stuff. All right. Yeah. So storage of stuff. Huge fan of the Grid-It systems. One of my friends who's an emergency manager, Jeff Stevens, he sent me some pictures after that, and his actually like zip up and stuff. He likes to keep everything compact. So that's why I like your cubes that you have in there. Because in some cases, his concern was like, yeah, this is awesome. But the problem is if you have to take this in and out all the time, it gets caught or it snaps on other stuff. So definitely a valid point. I think they actually do make a version of this now that has the a zip up cover. So yeah, and then just lots of batteries and adapters. That's another thing people forget about. Like you're kind of everyday, everyday carry now.
And even though you're maybe an iPhone guy, bring some Droid stuff.
Yeah.
Like you'll be everyone's best friend if you have cordage for them, right?
Yes.
Like, oh yeah, I got them for you.
Yeah, I usually bring your USB micro. Fortunately, most sort of Android stuff has moved towards the USB-C, and it sounds like Apple is probably going to be like my iPad uses USB-C.
The iPad does now.
Yeah. So I think you're going to see probably everything go to this. And even though it's marketed by Apple as Lightning, it's essentially the same thing. So I do keep USB-C, the Apple connector, whatever that's called, and then usually at least one micro one. Because for whatever reason, a lot of those batteries charge off the USB micro, even though if they have USB-C. But I carry adapters.
I haven't really seen the storage batteries moving to USB-C.
And I wonder if that's because they don't want people plugging the power into the sending part of it, and so they're like, well, this will maybe keep people from doing that. But
that's probably it.
And then water bottles.
Yes,
Always have hydration. Hydrate.
And again, back with Sawyer, right? So they have a product, and I'm not just pumping them up. I've been a firm believer and user of Sawyer for years.
Yeah,
love their that brand and love their products. They have a really nice water bottle that has the entire purification system in it. So you just screw off the top.
Yeah.
You can take lake water, screw it on, and when you drink through it. So something like that is extremely valuable.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
Well, and that when I was a little kid, I mean, I like to think Vermont's streams are nice and clean, but I can't tell you how many times like biking around, and I'm like, oh, I'm thirsty. I'm just going to drink out of the stream. And I'm like, well, that's cool. Even though it's came out of the, beautiful mountains, there's dead animals and people who knows doing what in it, and I'm like, it's so disgusting to think back on. But I didn't die, so and maybe it made me stronger. And so I think having a good, keep that in your car, and they make a bunch of different versions. They actually have a really cool one for camping that's like, I think it's like a 3-gallon bag. support in there, which support you for basically a day, or if you're a single person, that should support you for about 3 days. Like you kind of anticipate like a gallon a day to be safe, on the safe side. And then, they make the little portable ones, which are awesome. And then they also make some, for the emergency managers that can attach to, whatever water supply you're using, and you could just, run off it. So that's, just good for the emergency managers. Yeah, dude, I mean, God, like I said, I could talk about this stuff all day.
Yeah, clearly we could go for
yeah. We've rambled quite a bit as it is. So I guess where can people get your kits? What's the best way to find all the stuff that you guys are selling?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for that. So for us, Instinct Ready, one word, right? It's Instinct Ready, one word. InstinctReady.com is our website, and then all of our socials. So we've got Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You can find us there. We sell our quick pack on Walmart.com, so that's available.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So you can go to Walmart.com if you want the quick pack as well. So there's a couple ways to find us, and then Disaster Class podcast. We're on the Readiness Lab. We love this network. We're so happy that's where we're able to, meet and interchange and things like that. So, plenty of ways to find us. InstinctReady.com and Disaster Class, one word, on the Readiness Lab, and wherever else you listen to podcasts.
And Wesley's a good dude, so I highly recommend you listen to the podcast. I'm gonna have Jason on probably in a few weeks to kind of talk, his gear and his background. But both awesome people, So if you like this, like the podcast, whatever, smash that like button, subscribe below. If you're on YouTube, and then, give us the 5-star, give us the 2 thumbs, whatever you can to sort of like support us. We appreciate it. And then go check out Disaster Class, because like he said, that's still on the Readiness Lab network. And they have all sorts of great interviews and other stuff. I've been listening. I've been trying to get through. So we have so many podcasts that like I'm like cycling through. And so I've been like slamming through all the Disaster Class stuff over the recently. And they have like cool, like they had this guy who invented the pull start fire. That was something that was so cool. That was one of those like
easiest way to start a fire.
Yeah. I was kind of I was roasting these guys, and I can't start a fire if my life depended on it. I could put a fire out, but for whatever reason, I suck at starting fires. And this thing is awesome. I was saying, like, if these 2 guys from like Poughkeepsie can start a fire, then anyone can. So, but yeah, they have all sorts of cool guests on there. So, so thanks for listening, Wesley. Thanks for being on.
All right, so that concludes this episode of Disaster Class. Be sure to tune in next week. As always, there's homework. Make sure that you like, subscribe, give us that thumbs up, that 5-star rating. Send us a question if you have any. If you have a question, if you have a disaster story to share, survival tip, send us an email, disasterclass@instinctready.com. And doing so will always put you in the running to be featured on the show and win some cool stuff. But as always, thank you so much for tuning in. Stay educated, stay prepared, stay equipped. Class dismissed. Disaster Class is part of the Readiness Lab, the home for podcasts, webinars, and training in the field of emergency and disaster services.